There's no conflict of interest for anyone with the ability to control the content of this activity. And today I have the honor of introducing our speaker, Dr. Holly Wee. Dr. Holly Wee is the professor and associate dean for the PhD program at the University of Louisville School of Nursing in Kentucky. In her new position, Holly is dedicated to uniting academic and practice leaders to shape leadership science, education in nursing, and the practice of nursing leadership, fostering collegial relationships and intellectual exchange among nurse educators, practice leaders, and nurse researchers, whose focus is on nursing administration and leadership. These relationships expand the focus on leadership education and research that translates into excellence into practice. And today, Holly's going to speak to us on the edge of chaos to growth strategies to adapt beyond the pandemic. And now I'll turn the platform over to Dr. Wee. Oh, and while we're doing that, let me also mention that Dr. Wee this year got inducted into the Academy of Nursing. So I guess we'd all like to congratulate her for this tremendous achievement. And Dr. Jean Watson was one of her sponsors. So she's very well known for her work in resilience, well-being, and caring. Thank you. Dr. Wee.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, there's an echo. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Well, thank you very much, Laura, for your wonderful introduction. And thank you all very much for taking your time and joining us this afternoon. The topic today is from the edge of chaos to growth. Some practical strategies to adapt. That time I thought that the pandemic could be gone, is beyond the pandemic, but also right now is during and beyond the pandemic. It is really my great pleasure to be here and discuss this important topic with you. So the objective this afternoon is to discuss nurses' experience in the last 1.5 years during the pandemic, introduce the edge of chaos, and describe the strategies to adapt during and beyond the pandemic. So as we all know, the world has been experiencing an unmatched time since last year because of COVID-19. It threatens the global society, leading to collective emotions and shifting the society's culture and actions. Last year, during the initial stage of the pandemic, healthcare systems and professionals experienced significant shortages, including healthcare staff and protective equipment like PPEs. So we all know that very well, especially masks. We do not even have a mask at that time. Nurses have been wearing one mask per week. And frontline healthcare workers faced war-like circumstances, including patients' prolonged suffering, more deaths than usual in a very short period of time, uncertainty and lack of adequate resources. But they are also afraid. They feared of contacting the virus, infecting others, including their children and family, and even death. But at that time, we all had hope. We had a hope that for vaccine, we had also had hope for situation to get better. So a year later, this past spring, we were still in the middle of the pandemic. Living during the pandemic causes people to experience mental distress, such as stress, anxiety, fear, panic, depressed mode, hopelessness, grief, and social isolation. Healthcare professionals are particularly affected and continued to face challenges. Some have developed chronic stress, job burnout, and post-traumatic stress disorder, we also call PTSD, have difficulty recovering after experiencing or witnessing a terrifying event. And some nurses or clinicians may not be able to get rid of the undesirable thoughts or worries, have difficulty sleeping, or avoid work or commitment, engage in unhealthy coping like using alcohol or substance, or even experience frequent physical symptoms. So that's a year later. And now it's a year and a half later, we are still in it. Healthcare workers continue to face COVID-19 pandemic and experience trauma, both individually and collectively. So we are still experiencing these waves of COVID-19, and one is the first and the second and the third. So no one knows what to come next. We do not know what tomorrow holds. Yet we do know that when COVID-19 cases increase, so does healthcare workers' trauma experience and mental distress. The acute and chronic pandemic-related stress has exacerbated healthcare workers, especially nurses, physicians, pre-existing already high levels of occupational-related psychological issues, such as higher levels of job-related stress, burnout, depression, and suicide. And some already know, actually 2018, there's an article from California. They said actually nurses have the higher suicide rate per capita than the general public. So job-related burnout right now actually is at an epidemic level. Some literature already call burnout as epidemic. It's detrimental to healthcare workers' health and patient care quality, because we are the components of patient care quality. So when we look at the news right now, all we see is the hospitalized patients hit a record high, crisis in hospitals, COVID-19 climbs, wiping the months of progress. And there's 1 in 500 residents died during the COVID-19 because of COVID-19, and the hospitals in crisis. And even we activated a National Guard to help stranded hospitals. I mean, all this news, it's very hard not to take it in. So later on, we will see what we can do. And right now, when just type any news, coronavirus, this is what's going on, and plus the rest of the situations. While we do not know what's going to happen next, excuse me, we do know that our nurses are tired, stressed, and burnout. Many research studies have been done on nurses and other clinicians' mental health issues and indicated significantly high levels of stress, burnout, and depression. Excuse me. So American Nurses Association actually conducted 2 series, actually now it's in the 3rd one, in 2 series last year, back in March, April, and also in December. So in March, the first series had more than 10,000 nurses participated in the survey, shared the impact of the COVID-19 on their personal mental health. And over 51% of the nurses felt overwhelmed that time. Close to 50 reported feeling anxious and irritable. About 40% nurses felt sad. 30% felt angry, isolated, lonely, and depressed. And only a little bit over 1/3 said that they were confident in their ability to handle things or felt that their work had a meaning. Barely a quarter of them, like 20-some%, reported being resilient or optimistic about the future. As some nurses reported feeling numb, guilty, betrayed, and like a failure. These feelings are not good feelings and may further drain our already depleted energy. So in December last year, again, ANA conducted the 2nd survey with almost the same items. And this survey definitely showed some worsening situations. As you can see, exhaustion is over 70%, overwhelmed over 60%, and all numbers went high. And these also actually coincide with my own study as well. My own research, I conducted research at that time before the pandemic, and then I had to started my data collection in January last year, and until March, April, then I had to stop because of the pandemic. And then I picked it up again, the university said we could conduct research again in October. So naturally, I had these two groups, one group before pandemic and another group is during the pandemic. So I was able to look at the burnout rate and also I used a biomarker called a telomere. Telomere is an aging biomarker, really correlated with our immune system, our aging related illnesses and cancer and heart disease. So I was able to conduct that. I conducted 146 samples. And I was very fortunate and very thankful for the nurses who did that. And my research showed that already submitted for under review in the +1 right now, over 70% of the nurses and showed high level of burnout, not medium, not minor, is a higher level. If I include the moderate, that will be much, much higher. So just higher level burnout is over 70%. So this is very similar to the national data. And also they ask nurses about their sleeping, their eating, relationship, use of alcohol substance, and other issues. So back in March, we already had these significant problems like difficulty sleeping. There 60% of nurses reported that, 38 about overeating and relationships also suffering. And then back in December, that those numbers also get higher. So difficulty sleeping about 67%, overeating 40%, a relationship 25%. So definitely we can see some increase as well. So one year into it, so this past spring in mid-March and April, there's a national data with 1,273 people, nurses across 50 states participating in a survey. 43% consider leaving the healthcare profession in 2021. That's almost 50%, half of the nurses. And so right now there's a question about whether they want to stay in healthcare. They're 56% versus in the previous year, actually they're 80%. So we had about 24% less. And then also as a tenure, about their experience with the nursing. So the least experience in the nurses actually has higher level of leaving the profession. For the age-wise, the ones younger than 40 or older than 59, they were the ones really want to consider leaving the healthcare profession. About 72% reported hospital morale got worse since last year, and 87% respondents shared that their hospital or facility on average has short staff. And only 20%, that's even less than, it's about 1/5, felt optimistic about the future. So that's a really significant issue what we face. In a year and a half later, now in September, North Carolina Nurses Association, where I am also a board member, conducted a survey. And the survey asked whether the impact, whether it's higher or lower, even compared with 3 months ago. They said the nurses answered a higher impact, that's over 80%. So over 80% of nurses said the higher even than 3 months ago. And then the question is, does your facility practice have a short staff? 41% said yes, said a severe shortage, and 36% said moderate. And then have you worked longer hours? And about 60% said yes. So here are some voices from the nurses, is that I get feelings of dread when I start getting ready to go to work. After I come home, I will spontaneously, from time to time, just start crying for no reason. And I'm tired, stressed. I don't want to go to work anymore. I now dread going to do the job I love. I finally find myself become more and more angry every day. I'm mentally, physically exhausted. I'm experiencing stress, depression, anxiety. I'm often tearful. This, as you can see, is a part of the depressed mood and also the burnout symptoms. So now we finished the first objective about what nurses feel for this 1.5 years. And you can see we are really at the edge of a chaos. So the edge of chaos actually refers to a region of bounded instability that engenders a constant dynamic interplay between order and disorder. From this picture, you can see there's the lower level where there's a certainty, majority agreement, you have the stasis, you have the stable condition. But on the right side, higher, that's when the uncertainty is high and the far from agreement, and then you can see the chaos. So there's an in between that space called the edge of chaos, is used to denote the transition between order and disorder. But also, it is in this transition zone between the order disorder that's actually also a zone for innovation, for doing strategies to really have to create a place for new patterns. So that's a good about the chaos. So if we don't do something, we may go into chaos. But if we take this opportunity and do something about it, and we may create some new pattern and do a better in a better position. So the phrase of edge of chaos was first used to describe transition phenomena discovered by computer scientist Christopher Lanton in the 1990s, and then quickly became part of a language of complex systems. So there's a saying, we don't let good or severe crisis go to waste. So what I want to see, that edge of chaos is between stimulus and the response. There's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So we need to really take this opportunity. You know, if before this one became in this space, it was very rigid. I remember there's a change theory. You know, we all have the phrase and rephrase and I rephrase again, unphrase and rephrase again. So I would take that as an unphrase moment. So it turned loose now. Used to be it's all rigid, is all together, and it's very difficult to make any changes. And now we are in this moment, we can take advantage of it. So like, for example, the Zoom we are using, even a couple of years ago, the Zoom was not even not popular. And I even drive like 2 hours there, 2 hours back, just to be there for an hour, a meeting or something, and 4 hours on the road just to be there for 1 hour every week or a couple of weeks, a couple of times a week, because people believe we have to be there in person. And it was very difficult to have that moment to see, okay, we can do that online. And then telehealth was very, very resistant by the physicians. They were like, no, cannot do it. I have to see my patients. But during this pandemic, suddenly everything changed. So we used to think online teaching, and they just do not like it. They just do not like it. And during this year, it just suddenly switched. And the new patterns start to sift out. And we got used to the Zoom. We use the Zoom all the time. And so more people actually get used to it. And now we think about not driving that 4 hours back and forth, and we can do things. So new patterns started. However, during this new pattern, again, competitors also come too, like for them. But now we have so many things to do the same thing like Zoom did. So that's what I want to see, is like, this is the time, the moment we can be innovative to do things and change our mindset instead of looking at being a victim, and we become a victory. So while we talk about the edge of chaos, I want to mention about the complex adaptive system. So healthcare actually is a complex system. So it's complex, as you can see. It's not like linear, you know, from A to B to C is like a one line, as used to be, you know, before this post-digital age. So healthcare systems, like contains many parts, interconnected. The boundaries are fuzzy. We have autonomous, uncertainty, unpredictable, adaptability, and dynamic, and also adaptive. So we adapt all the time. So leaders, so how many of us we think about, oh my goodness, today we'll have a good day because we have, 8 scheduled for 7 people supposed to be scheduled. We have 8 today. How many shifts do we have that, like we thought we had actually overflow, and then we suddenly became like maybe 3 of us can only work. So that's the unpredictability, the complex system. So really we have to be prepared for unpredictability, and it's normal to have uncertainty. So not uncertainty is bad or good, that's just reality. So that's a complex system. That's why the chaos theories quickly became a complex system in as far as the terminology. So as you can see, as a complex adaptive system composed of networks of agents, our like nurses, physicians, all the clinicians, PT, OT, social work, even patients, we are all agents of this network. Our agents are people. We just people interaction, and we are the building blocks for the overall pattern. And the complex system also has neural-like networks. It's a dynamic network of interaction. The behaviors of the components, which is the agents, our behaviors, are not predictable, yet they develop rich patterns to really affect the result. So over time, the system become more complex, coherent, and organized. And that's in between, there might be edge of chaos. Think about a metal ball, and there's a little round ball in there shifting, just keep turning until it's get stable enough, will be stabilized. There's a little movement and the ball will start running again. So our system, think about, it's not maybe even a shaped ball. Maybe it's not even like not even a shaped ball. Maybe it's out of shape. So the ball is running all the time, is moving around all the time. So that's the complexity. A healthcare is like that. And so we need to think about, as leaders, we need to think about how I can lead in this kind of a situation. Build networks, connectivity, self-organization, and build a feedback loop. And we co-evolve with the situations. Set like simple rules. This is what I want this to be done. And however you get it done, think about the way, just instead of like you push and you lead. I want you to think about a chain in your mind, like a chain, like a long chain put on the table. If you push it, you do not know which direction it goes. But if you find the way, you can just lead it, guide it, and for sure it will come in one line. So always think about what's the best way to lead in this complex situation. It's non-linear, and we want to have the emergence of novel patterns. And so that's the complexity. So now we talk about the edge of chaos. We move to the third objective, which is the strategies to facilitate growth during and beyond the pandemic. So these strategies actually are built based on 2 effects and 1 belief. We all know our nurse would do research. We all have to have a belief system, ontology, epistemology, and research theory. So what I did for the strategies is based on this 2 effects and 1 belief. So the 2 beliefs are we call butterfly effect and the reflection effect. So the butterfly effect actually is that seemingly small changes can have large effects. So a meteorologist a long time ago, Edward Lorenz, discovered that in chaos theory, the smallest change to a mathematical formula could change the end result. When even initially because he wanted to predict weather, so he had this all long formula with all these digits, so many digits at the end. But later on, he tried to kind of go a shortcut and try to do I just go a shortcut to use the truncated number, then came out totally different. And initially was okay, gradually became totally different. So he couldn't figure out what the reason. And then finally he realized even those the thousands and tens of thousands of those decimal points afterwards, and couldn't make a difference. So that's how this one came out. But when he did that pattern, it's like a butterfly. So that's how the butterfly effect came about. So there's a saying, probably you already know, so can a butterfly flap its wings in South Africa, create a thunderstorm in Texas? So it's a kind of the exaggerated way, but it's the meaning is that even the smallest change could make a difference. Another one is the reflection effect. This one I couldn't find is a different. At first I was thinking to use a mirror effect, but there's somebody else use it, but that's not what I really wanted to do. But so I just give a name called the reflection effect. What I mean is that our life is a reflection of our attitude, reflects what we think, reflects how we behave. And others, what I want to see is leaders reflect, the followers should reflect the leader's attitudes and behavior. That could be others, could be our co-workers, could be parents. Our children reflect our attitude and behavior. And I always tell my children, I said, whatever you want other people to treat you, and you behave like the way you want people to treat you. If you want other people to treat you with respect, then you respect. If you want other people to treat you with this confidence, you are confident, then you show that. So the world actually is a reflection of how we behave, how our attitude is. If we are positive, and look at the mirror. I mean, I like the mirror, but the mirror effect is not what I wanted. But I like the mirror. If you smile, and then you get a smile image. If you frown, you get a frown. If you are angry, then you get angry. So whatever we want to feel, make sure you do it first, then the world will reflect on you. So that's the two effects I want to see that. And then the one belief is that I believe the human mind is a fertile ground. We plant all the time. Whatever we plant, we reap what we plant. So there's a saying that in the garden of your mind, you can grow orchards or weeds. The fertile soil gives life to both. So you choose what you want to plant in there. And another one is McGill Rees, who's the author, a New Age author. And he said that the human mind is like a fertile ground where seeds are continually being planted. The seeds are opinions, ideas, and concepts. You plant a seed, a thought, and it grows. So every human mind is a fertile, and for the seeds it is prepared for. So how can we plant the seeds that can grow positivity? What seeds do you continue to plant in the mind? I always check that. Okay, what do I plant in my mind? Do I plant positivity, or do I plant negativity or angry or selfishness? So always check that. And later on, the next slides probably will show the power of our human brain. Our human brain knows what we want to actually select. Look at the little grooves in there, and there's a highways and there's a little ways. So whatever we do all the time is a highway. So when we want to go somewhere, and then you can choose the road. We always choose the road is the easiest, the fastest, and the less traffic. So the human mind is the same way. If we do this all the time, we build this habit and we want to do it. And then if something happened, and that's the way we go. So that's the neural cortex and limbic system. Those are two systems really control our reaction. And we all know the limbic system is the one with amygdala, thalamus, hypothalamus, hippocampus, and basal ganglia, and the cingulate gyrus. So what this one is the amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. It's the fear center. Actually, it's very important to have it. For example, if you do not have the fear center, you can touch the stove, the hot stove. But the amygdala says, oh, I cannot do that. It's very hot. So there are some people, when the amygdala got hurt, they do not have the fear, which is very dangerous. And the thalamus is the central hub. I would see this like the wireless router at home. The message comes in, the thalamus kind of distributed to the appropriate department. And the hypothalamus is the control of autonomic system. The hippocampus is the memory center at the end. However, the hippocampus is surrounded by other hormone producing places. And so I don't know whether you have this feeling if you are feeling stressed, and then you may feel like, oh my goodness, my memory is get bad. I remember when I was doing my PhD studies, my memory was very bad. All I could think of is my dissertation. And I do not have any energy to think about anything, so my memory was very bad for those years. And then the basal ganglia organize your motor behaviors. And the singular is basically to avoid pain. So the brain just like really avoid pain. If you say like, oh, I wish I could not, I don't need to take the test. I just want to get out of the test. Your brain said, if you do not like it, I may give you something else. Maybe you get cold or whatever. You don't need to take the test. So our brain is very smart. And also I want to mention about the processing. The processing is like the two ways. For example, there's a sensational processing and also the perception. So what that means is the sensation of the brains, like we get the taste, the sound, the smell, and then trigger the emotion. And the processing is like the long way to go through the neural cortex and to see, okay, whether this is legitimate. I give you an example. One time, for example, if I work in the yard, and then I dig, try to pull the weeds, and then suddenly there's a snake. I jumped. So what happened is that the snake, I saw that, and it went to my brain, and then my sensational processing are like, oh, danger, go. And then later on, I went back to dig my thing, which was good. There's a snake, I ran away. The second time I was there, and then I saw like a tube, a hose, water hose. I thought the snake had jumped away again. Then my brain went back to the neural cortex to see, oh, that's not a snake, that's a hose. So it's okay, no danger. So then I calmed down, and then I thought, okay, there's no danger. So that's the two coordination. So the first one is you go away, and then the brain said, it's okay. So I come back. So later on, how can we, we have the words like, make sure you see something, you do something going through the brain. And then that's what the neural cortex, you think before you see it. So that's how those one later on, the strategies actually is, we need those kind of moments. And then of course there's a HPA axis to control our hormone, the loop. And to, for example, if we were stressed, to produce cortisol. If cortisol get to a higher level, we'll shut down the valve, the producing, and then we don't produce it as much. And then also central pathways for oxytocin, or so many different hormones. I will touch that as well. So then, based on the literature, I developed and called energy model. What that means is that there are some basically summarized 6 categories of strategies for self-care. And the first was connecting with the energy source, nurturing kindness, practicing emotional hygiene, refocusing or renew your purpose, germinating positivity, and appreciating your uniqueness. So that's the 6. Every single category, there are some strategies to practice. And also with Jean Watson and Dr. Harden, so we developed a resilience building model. So basically using the caring theory, we developed the resilience building model emphasizing interpersonal connectivity, relationships, embracing loving kindness, promoting a sense of belonging, and working life in balance, and also forgiveness, forgive others and self, and also maintaining faith, belief, and hope. That's just super, super important. If there's no hope, there's no future. So, and also based on the 2 models and the literature, it kind of created this pathway called resilience, how we can, like our body and mind connected through cognitive pathways and behavior pathways. And the cognitive pathways, we have the cognitive training, emotional regulation, and the behaviors, so how we can use the triangle. I don't know whether you remember those cognitive behavior, the triangle. Basically, our behavior affect our feeling, the feeling and our thoughts. So thoughts, behavior, and feeling, the three of them is all connected. Our feelings, affect our behaviors, behavior affect our thoughts, and vice versa as well. And the social connections, physical well-being. So going through this quickly, the 6 strategies of the energy source. We all need energy. Without energy, we cannot function. We cannot survive. We cannot function. Even the phone, if we do not have a battery in there and we cannot use the phone, there's no function. So what I want to see is really find the energy sources that fit you. I would say there are 2 energy sources. One is physical and one is emotional. The physical, we all know we need to eat and sleep and exercise, and the emotional, the exercise can be there as well. The exercise, the social support, and the relationship with others. So what I want to see is that is the exercise. So the exercise, when we heard the runner's high. What that means is when we run to a point, and it will trigger our HPA system to produce that is called endorphin. When the endorphin builds, and we feel very excited. Actually, the endorphin, what that is like is the morphine-like painkiller. So we feel very good. That time we feel the runner's high. So you just want to go for a run once you get used to it, and the brain develop this highway, and every morning I need to go for a run. So just get that habit. I need to go for a run. So once you get to the habit, your brain has oh, here's the highway, you can go. This is easy to go. Then you will do it. Build the habit. And I basically made this chart. What this chart means that you can see the energy, the red, the phone, the red is like the bottom, and the green is on the top. The energy, when we feel have the energy, we not only affect ourselves, we affect the people around us. So if you don't sleep well, you don't eat well, you are angry all the time, then we're reading that to others, our coworkers, our families, our children, our loved ones. And if you have a good, have energies, and then we're also reading that to the surroundings, our peers, our colleagues, our children, our family. So think about it. Think about which area you want to be on this energy chart. And the next one is nurturing kindness. And research already showed that if you do good to others, actually that will also give you a surge of oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. Those are all feel-good hormones. And this get acts of kindness. And it just like for the pick up something from the floor to help others. You lend your hands, you do something, you feel great. And some nurse leaders before the pandemic was even lead people to volunteer, humanity, and build things for the homeless dogs, to make nurses connected and to be united. So those are the nurturing kindness. So think about it. When you do practice kindness to others, and actually there will be benefits to others and yourself, and make you feel like build a happy hormone. They call the helper's high, runner's high and helper's high. So that's the nurturing kindness. And then the emotional hygiene. When we were little, we already know how to brush our teeth to prevent a cavity. And if we get hurt, we put bandages. And if we feel sick, we drink water and take vitamins and all this. But rarely were we taught how to deal with the rejection, how to deal with the sadness, how to deal with this anxiety, depression. So the emotional hygiene is really to look at your emotions. You know what to do when you feel rejected, know what to do when you feel sad. And so there are some ways I want to mention is that you challenge your overthinking. Your rumination, basically you keep thinking about the same thing, oftentimes the negative one. Keep thinking, my goodness, 25 years ago I did that. Oh my goodness, I wish I didn't do that. And every time something happens, you think about 25 years ago. And our anxiety, fear section, amygdala, does not have time or space. Every time you bring to it, and it will go back to the same place 25 years ago, because there's no time that's already 25 years ago. So basically what you do is you change your position with others. If they did that to hurt you, this is you really change position to say, okay, if I'm in that situation, what can I do? And other ones is a cleansing emotions, a deep breathing, disclose your difficult feelings, and expressive writing, mindfulness practice, and yoga meditation. What I want to see is the deep breathing. We all heard about that. We all thought maybe it's like a word, cliche word, which is not. When you breathe, actually, you have a pattern. Your brain will calm down because there was like not a lion chasing you. And so they will regulate your HPA system axis to regulate your hormone, which will be good for your health. And also when you deep breathe and you hold your breath, the carbon dioxide actually have a calming effect. And also the upregulation, which is to serve others, to make you motivated to do something that will make you feel better as well. So next one is the refocusing and renew your purpose. So sometimes it's all depend on what we plant in our brain, what we focus on. So if you look at this blue dot, really look at it, take a good look at it. And if you close your eyes, you can give a test. If you close your eyes, and then I ask you, think about something red you just saw. It would be very difficult for you to switch from the blue to red because all you focus is on the blue. So think about what you do in the daily life, what you want to focus on, the positive or the negative, because whatever you focus on, that's what's in your brain. So, and also the news, like I said, when you turn on the news, it's all, most of them are negative. So that will be really, our brain has a tendency to really keep the negativity. So think about limit some news consumption. And cultivate optimism. So I developed this ABCDE, optimistic or ABCDE, appreciate life. Begin our day with gratitude. Cultivate a growth mindset. Develop positive habits. Encourage constructive language. Instead of like, oh, I will never do that. And I will never feel better. I always feel sad. She never calls me. And use something different. Oh, she has not called me lately. I didn't do well this time. To make it the specific, so your brain will not be like, oh, there's no hope. Always believe there's a hope, there's a belief. Appreciate life. To just think about earlier the news that 1 in 500 died. Just by being here today, we need to appreciate what we have. And your uniqueness. We are all miracles. There's nothing short of that. So what we have to do is we have to build the inner power. There are two powers. The seed of the soul, the book said there are two powers, the given power, the inner power. So the inner power, you have it. Nobody can take it away unless you give permission. So we heard about this incivility, all this work environment, and really need to build up our inner power. What can we do to make ourselves not be inclined to hurt, and think about the stop self-criticism and stop self-comparing. You are yourself. And then finding hope. Again, I want to see that hope is and purpose is the most foundational. Without hope, what's the meaning? So all traumas are devastating. It is not the trauma events that create a positive change, but what we do in the aftermath of the events. Viktor Frankl was an Australian neurologist and psychiatrist, and he was a Holocaust survivor. He said in the book, in The Man's Searching for Meaning, he said, everything can be taken away from a man. I will also add all women. But one thing, that is the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances. So our brain, we have the freedom to choose. And I really like Maya Angelou said, if you don't like something, change it. If you cannot change it, change your attitude. It's just so true. We cannot change so many things right now in the world, but we can change how we treat it. So then that's the same word. Between the stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That's the key to growth. And what we want to do is we are all united, we are connected, and we will get through this. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wee. Your talk has really inspired quite a bit of dialogue in the chat box. So I'm going to go ahead and
I will stop sharing.
Okay. So a comment was made. The American Nursing Association has released a national call for support and intervention for the nursing crisis, shortage and lack of well-being in the current nurses. Do you think their call to action addresses important steps that should be taken based on your research?
Well, my research is, again, we said is over 70%, and we need to do something. And I want this message actually goes to all nurses. Sometimes we cannot change what we face, but we can't change ourselves. And that's the message I want to give to our, others to see. We have the power to change. And we need to do that. It's not survivable with the situation we face if we do not change our attitude. If we just say, okay, this is the situation, everybody thought bad and we feel bad and this one feel bad and we all feel bad. I mean, how good would that be to ourselves, to our family, not let alone to our patients? And we are the backbone of the healthcare and we need to do something. However, this something is not like, okay, outside impose. I do not want one more lecture to give to me. It has to come from inside, within ourselves, our own willingness to change. Just like the smoker, if doesn't matter your wife, your children, whoever to tell you to change, to stop, nothing can change unless you ourselves make that move to say, okay, I need to stop. I need to stop thinking negatively. I need to stop doing self-criticism, criticize you, criticize myself. There's no good. Our brain is very, very tired that way. We need to save our energy to grow instead of divert our energy to other negativities. Yes, I think we need to call, but it should be within from ourselves, not from inside, outside in. It should be inside out.
Okay, thank you for that. Here's another one. Given the opportunity to think about our daily rituals, which may not be value added, particularly in light of what we are bombarded with daily, what should change with regards to roles, responsibilities, and duties?
So I would see change small, the smallest thing. For example, like we have to see, I would say leaders always cherish what with the agents. The agents are the ones having new patterns. Like, we always complaining about the nurses hoarding medications and give from room to room and then do this. And it was like, no, don't do that. That's not right. Why not let the nurses figure out to see, okay, what can we do to make that one not putting in my pocket and to do something with it? Give the autonomy back to the nurses, back to the agents. Let them figure out a way. Give them autonomy to do something. I think that one will give them ownership. Without ownership, with the accountability is much limited. So I would see the leadership will trust nurses and give them some vision or goal, let them figure out a way to go there. So I think the little rituals, we need to give the autonomy to nurses. That's for the workplace. For myself, for individually, we need to create a ritual so that build that ritual, stay with it for 3 weeks. And so that the brain can create a highway instead of a little wiggly road. And it's very difficult to go, the brain will not go. So if you already build the ritual, you're like 7 o'clock, I need to go for a walk, then go for a walk every day. So your brain says, this is it. This is a new ritual. So make it a ritual at work and at home.
So kind of switching gears a little bit, there was a comment, I like your statement of moving from the victim to the victor, but how would you help nurses achieve this view when the feeling right now is so hopeless?
Well, again, what we do is when I have meetings, the other people say, well, this is very difficult to do because I beg and I beg and I beg, and then this one still didn't change. I said, okay. So when I have the meeting, I flipped. What I see is that I need this plan of study. I just give you this example, plan study, they beg and they beg, and the advisor just does not give to them. I said, well, this is for you. Because when you do the plan of study, we will know what course you will teach next semester instead of you put all your effort, you designing this course, and then we do not have students, we have to cancel and put you in another course. I said, this is for your benefit. Think about it. We do not want you to waste this energy. And so after that, guess what? The plan of study is here. So what do we do for the nurses is that put this one, give to the nurse what this one will do to the nurse. We all want to say, okay, what can I get? What's the value? What's the value for me? So we want the nurses to see the value. If they do this, the value for them. And once they see the value, that's the motivator for them. So we all want to see, we do research. What's the benefit for the participant? What's the benefit for nurses? We're all human. We all have this selfishness in us. Not selfish, we value to say, okay, worth my time, and make sure, let them know the value. If they see the value, there's a purpose, there's a hope, and they can do it. Again, that's not from outside in. Now the manager said, do this, this, this. Is minimal instruction, and then let the nurse do something from inside out.
Here's another one. We are finding that as we adapt to our new way of operating, our patients' expectations have not changed, and we are not meeting them. Any suggestions on this phenomenon?
Well, I remember there's one facility right now. So we all face this situation because we do not have those staff. However, this is the time I want to see is at the edge of a kiosk, is the emergence of new waves, emergence of a new pattern. So this particular health system, actually what they do, they created something that does not require a nurse or something. They just, like, for example, the patients, they could not see their loved ones, or just for this instance, they have this, for example, a clerk, or even somebody in their unit, not a nurse particularly, develop this iPad to really go to rooms, make rounds, to serve patients, to talk to them, and to really facilitate this process and ask them what they can do. There's a way to do it. The patient expectation didn't change. We do not expect them to change because they are here, they are alone. So what we will do is how we can create a less payment position to help those patients' needs. There's always an innovation piece in there. Now they are creating, they call adjustment, a person for really do the HCAP, whatever the HCAP is doing, and as a guide to help patients. So there will be a lot of ways to do it. It's very difficult to see blank out, to say, okay, we can do it. And again, give to the agents. And maybe these agents are patients, what they need, and find out what they need. We find a way to meet them. We got to the perception. The patient's perception is always the truth. We talk about truth. What's the truth? That's the truth for them. And it doesn't matter how we believe we are suffering, and the patients need their needs met. And how can we do that? That will take a creative mindset.
So perhaps maybe one more.
Those are very good questions.
Yeah, I know that from my perspective, Holly, you and I've kind of talked about my career a little bit. And my former position as an administrator, I had about 6 direct reports that were frontline managers, title nurse manager, or a director that was actually over a clinical area and had staff reporting directly to them. Here we are a year later, I've touched base with my former leaders, and 6 out of the 6, only 2 remain. When I talked to the ones that left, they told me it was just too much. The 24/7 call, the patients are unhappy. I've got half my staff, 1/3 of my staff out on COVID. I'm always being called to come in and filling the host. Any thoughts around your research and what we can do for that really segmented group that just can't seem to disconnect due to their own job description?
Well, that's a very, very good question, but also tough question. And I remember I read Dr. Ruth Sherman's blogs every week, and she wrote all this work. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so awesome. So we need to, I mean, the nurse leaders right now is really at a tough position. I mean, they are really at the tough position. If there's no staff, they might have to staff. So that's a group of people we need to really work with. Maybe later on during the conference, I might talk about something about the complex leadership and what can we do about the leadership in this kind of situation. Now we are at the 2 minutes. I need to give back to Laura, but we really need to think about the power of praise, the power of relationship, and something we can do during this complex time. And nurse leaders right now need help. They definitely do. And these are great questions. Thank you so much for the questions.
Yeah. They are great questions and not easy to be solved. And thank you, Dr. Wee, for a fantastic presentation, but also a time of reflection. And we can all begin with ourselves with some of the strategies that you and I saw Dr. Rosell and others bringing forth in terms of really, capitalizing what we do new, and that is self-care and mindfulness and just taking a breath and then beginning with ourselves in small changes. So Rod, if we can just turn to the slides, I'll close our conference with a few more announcements. Robert? I know most of you will be wanting to get your CEUs for this conference, and we do have a link that we ask you to fill out to complete it, and then you will receive in the mail, or the email rather, your CEUs, okay? Next. And of course, we planned all year for this, and we did hope that we were going to be in person, but we're not. We're going to be virtual, and I'm pleased to say that we have some amazing presentations. None of our speakers left us, and all of our presentations that were lined up for our in-person are going to be offered. So again, our virtual conference is October 16th through the 18th, and our keynote speakers are really preparing some extraordinary presentations. While they will not be live, we will be able to hear from them, and they're coming from all over the United States. Next. And this year, thanks to Todd and his team, we have two fantastic pre-conference workshops that we're offering. One is on evidence-based practice, and the other is the editor's workshop. Both will really are based on feedback that our conference attendees said that they would like to have a longer time period to be able to do some skill building. So this is an opportunity, and these will be offered prior to the launch of our conference at noon. So please, it's not too late to sign up for this workshop. And also you can attend the workshop if you can't attend the conference. So if you have students or nurse leaders that would like to get in a 3-hour session, it is on a Saturday. And I realize that's, again, getting to people's personal time, but for some, it may also be the only time they have, and they do want to do this. Please let your teams and your colleagues know that these workshops are available even if you can't attend. And last but not least is we have our 7th webinar after our conference in October, and it will be held November 16th at 12 noon, and it will be given by the Plane Tree Model leaders. And the topic is if it were your family, what would you want? A balanced and informed approach to reinstating family presence. And we know how important through the COVID pandemic, family presence is to both health, healing, and if you will, closure, if it is that time. So thank you again for today's conference, and please don't forget to do your CEUs, and you will be able to get your contact hours. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.